Welcome, everyone. I am Joe Irish with Siena Investments. I am a Senior Wealth Advisor, and joining me today is our Chief Investment Officer, Zach Armstrong. We're a part of the team here at Siena. Today, we're going to be talking about the investment policy statement, or as we refer to it as the IPS. At Siena, the IPS is one of our pillars to our client experience. Each IPS is uniquely designed to each individual client and their needs. Zach, if you can kind of give a few points of how the role of the IPS fits into your process from the investment side.
Thanks, Joe. As Tim and Vince will go into more detail about, we think there's really four main reasons to have an investment policy statement, or IPS for short. And one is it outlines the risk in your portfolio that's specific to each individual and their long-term plans for a successful retirement. The second point is it's a very systematic approach to how we approach investing. So it outlines everything from A to Z in your portfolio and the regular review process. So it takes all the emotions out of it. Having a systematic approach, it also dictates when we act in your portfolio and why, and not based on any recent market news or anything like that. So it gives us a systematic approach as well. And finally, it's a nice document for everything put together for a clear communication with not only us as your advisor, but within your family as well.
Thank you, Zach. Siena is a part of a partnership of over 100 firms nationwide. We are an independent firm, but we are part of that alliance with a partnership. Here are two of our thought leaders with their thoughts and comments about the investment policy statement as well.
Hello, Tim Maurer back with another episode of Ask Buckingham, a new video podcast designed to bring clarity in the midst of confusion by connecting your great personal finance questions with straightforward answers from industry thought leaders. Today's question will be answered by Vince Crivello, Buckingham's Vice President of Practice Management. And Vince, what the heck is an investment policy statement, and why do I need one?
I'm glad you spelled that out, because most advisors will say, what's an IPS? So if you hear IPS, it's an investment policy statement. So the roots of the investment policy statement, or the IPS, actually came from the institutional side of the business. And I won't bore you with those details, but think about an IPS, or an investment policy statement, as a procedural manual. So you're a fireman, or you're a pilot, and the pilot gets into a situation and she has to make decisions. Well, you don't want those decisions to be driven by emotions. Rather, you want them to be driven by what is the ultimate goal, which is getting that plane on the ground or getting from point A to point B, whatever it is. The IPS guides those decisions. And the IPS, if it's done and structured properly with your financial advisor, should anticipate choppy waters or choppy skies. And therefore, it should be designed to anticipate the ups and downs of the market or the economy.
So in other words, we don't believe that it's the most effective way to navigate the investing landscape to try and load up on, say, stocks when it looks like times are going to be good, and then sell a bunch of those stocks off and go more conservative when it looks like times are going to be bad, because history shows us that people simply don't have a good track record of doing that effectively. So what you're saying is the investment policy statement should craft a portfolio structure that in many ways is kind of an all-weather portfolio that takes into account one's tolerance for risk, time horizon, ability, willingness, and need to take risk?
Yeah, it's really focused, again, on the investments, and it's focused on, through a variety of different market scenarios, what is that plan through good markets and bad. Moreover, if you think about during times like these, where certain facets of the portfolio are down, for example, stocks are down, short-term high-quality bonds, many of them will be up. What are the rebalancing or what are the instructions and guidance around when do we sell certain things and buy other things? So fundamentally, the IPS should address that as well, but be driven by science and evidence, not emotions.
Okay, well, let's talk about rebalancing for a minute. You mentioned that. Where would I find guidance for rebalancing within an investment policy statement, and maybe even just a little bit on exactly what rebalancing is?
Well, first of all, many clients don't even have an investment policy statement. So I would encourage you, if you don't have one, you should absolutely talk to your advisor about getting one, or maybe you've just forgotten about it. So take a look at that IPS, and any good IPS is going to address the parameters or the time in which to buy or sell. It's not going to be based on timing the market. Rather, it's generally going to be based on if stocks go up, 20% or 10% or 5%, we're going to take some of those gains and buy bonds instead at a very simplistic level.
Got it. So if you're, say, a 60-40 portfolio with 60% in stocks, 40% in bonds, the market gets hammered in a relatively short period of time, and now you're a 50-50 portfolio, rebalancing would effectively take from the assets that have been doing well, buying high, if you will,
Right.
Selling high, I should say, and then buying lower in order to bring you back to that 60-40 allocation?
And remember that, yes, absolutely. Remember that allocation is based on a number of factors, like you mentioned earlier, your willingness to take risk, your capacity to take risk. In other words, what is that time frame that you want to achieve in terms of getting to retirement and through retirement? What can you sleep with at night? And among a number of different other factors.
Sure. And then lastly, it seems as though crazy times like this are when an investment policy statement is most called for. What benefit is it? How should I use an investment policy statement in the middle of crazy investing times like this?
Well, remember, the investment policy statement was designed for those long-term objectives. And unless those long-term objectives have changed, that IPS should still be applicable to the current state, the current situation. So again, it's going to pull the emotions out of the decision-making and focus on that long-term objective. Of course, if that objective has changed, you want to revisit the IPS with your advisor and really determine if there have been any material changes to your long-term plans.
So it's possible that we could endure a situation like this, say survive it, with a little guidance from the investment policy statement, a lot of hand holding from our advisor, but then our response to it might actually propel us to make an investment policy change after experiencing something like this.
Potentially, every situation is different. That's why we really want to encourage those conversations and those discussions. And it was really the IPS that I think served investors well during 2007, 8, and 9 when the markets were so volatile. Because if you were reacting to those markets and making emotionally based decisions, inevitably, it's likely you would have made the wrong decisions at just the wrong times.
How were you feeling about your investment policy statement back in 08 and 09? I can recall those days. It wasn't easy.
Yeah, and going back to the late 90s and thinking about when value stocks were getting hammered comparatively to growth stocks or the accounting scandals or the real estate market. We often joke is, what if you had an IPS on your house and the value in your house? Because our homes aren't valued on a daily basis, we don't get as caught up emotionally into the price of that asset. But if that were to happen, you probably want an IPS on your house and other assets across your personal life as well.
A whole life policy statement, it seems like you're encouraging us. And it's interesting, isn't it, that when we look back over history, we typically have a correction on average that is a 10% pullback in the market at some point throughout the year, on average every year. And when we look back and you talk about those previous experiences, like the financial crisis in 08 and 09 and the dot-com bubble bursting 9 and 11 back in the late 90s and early 2000s, it's really about every decade that we have an experience not horribly dissimilar from the one that we're now having with COVID-19.
Yeah. And again, any good investment policy statement has already built into the strategy all of these different scenarios. Again, at the investment portfolio level, I think if you think about an advisor and their role, it's got to be more than the investments. Because in times like this, you may have to, let's say, defer savings for that long-term goal a bit, or maybe think differently about certain things that you had planned to do. Maybe it was that annual family vacation. So the investment policy statement should be part of a broader conversation you're having with your advisor. It's an absolutely critical one, and it's one that needs to be in place and reviewed periodically. But again, don't forget about those other aspects of your financial and personal life that are going to play into your long-term objectives.
Absolutely. So the life plan informs the financial plan, which then informs the investment policy statement.
Exactly.
Thank you, Vince. And thank you for tuning into this episode of Ask Buckingham. If you have a question that you'd like to see us address, you can do so by navigating to the website, askbuckingham.com, or emailing your question to question@askbuckingham.com, or just click the upper corner of your screen. It'll take you directly to the website. Remember, there are no dumb questions, but unfortunately, there are plenty of dumb answers out there. Our hope is that in giving you straight answers to your questions, it will bring a sense of calm and allow you to apply what you've learned in pursuit of good decision-making. So please, follow us, and by all means, ask Buckingham.
Thanks, guys, for those thoughts. Again, I'm Joe Irish, and for Zach Armstrong and the entire Siena team, thanks for tuning in. Please reach out to us to learn more about how Siena can help you prepare for retirement.
Thank you.